Good morning.
One moment. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let me share my screen. We'll discuss about like HTTP and SOAP. Okay. I think do you have an idea, right? What is REST and what is SOAP web services?
SOAP service, yes.
Yeah. So REST also you have idea.
Yeah.
REST.
Yeah.
Yep. So here, like we will discuss about like how we are going to consume SOAP web services and REST web services. Okay, so when we are going to use like HTTP client for REST services, if you want to invoke from external services, we are going to use like HTTP connector we have. We are going to use to consume REST services. Okay, and if we have SOAP web services, we have legacy services, SOAP like web services. We are going to use SOAP web services client. We are going to use. So we have two connectors. One is SOAP web service client. One is like HTTP. HTTP we are going to use for consuming REST services. SOAP web service client use for consume SOAP REST like SOAP web services. We have two connectors. Okay. So generally these HTTP connectors we are going to use when we don't have connector inbuilt pre-built connector we don't have, then we are go for like an HTTP connector. Okay. Suppose we don't have like we have like number of connectors will be there, but so out of the box connectors we don't have like an external connector, so which we are going to consume, then we should go for like an HTTP connector. So we should understand those REST APIs, so then we can consume accordingly. So we have HTTP and HTTP client we have, and HTTP SOAP web services client. So web service SOAP client. These two services we are going to use consume those, so like web services. Suppose let's assume we have like one of the service REST API, we can take it. Suppose let's assume we are going to invoke like a SurveyMonkey API. So SurveyMonkey is like a third-party system. So the SurveyMonkey team will do like doing service like on behalf of like an organizations. Okay, this is like a third-party services. Suppose if you want to survey for your organization, then you can reach out to them. Then they are going to. We have to. We will feel like we can create some form like a feedback form or like whatever the questions you have. Then you have to create some form. Then they're going to submit those forms in the like Instagram or like in Facebook or like so any social media platform they're going to submit, and they will get those survey responses from different sources. So those sources like whatever like get the response from different sources, they're going to analyze those reports and they will give like final result to the particular organizations. What is the like total survey, how many members like participated, so how many resources they're going to find out these responses. Okay, So they have separate APIs. So if you want to consume those APIs, they have separate APIs. So every not only the SurveyMonkey API. So every API, every organization has like a separate API. Every application has a separate APIs they're going to use for developer dot like their company name .com. So this is the developer portal they're going to use it generally. So this is the developer portal for developers. So this is only for developers. SurveyMonkey they're going to use. So if you go for their site, then you have to use SurveyMonkey website. So every application has 2 websites in general. So this is like a SurveyMonkey website, and this is the developer site. So here we can understand those APIs, like what are those they developed APIs. Suppose if we go here, we have a number of API endpoints are available. So these are the endpoint APIs. So these are like a pure REST API. So we have like a survey folders API. And if you want like survey responses, see these are like survey responses. So if we have like once they created survey, we will get like an ID. So based on that ID, we are going to get like a survey responses. So collector responses. Suppose collector is nothing but what are the platforms they're going to submit our survey? So those are the collectors. Suppose our survey is like published on like Facebook or like web link through web link or any other platform. So those are the collectors.
Okay.
So we will get like different APIs is available based on our requirement. We will get those. These are like survey pages and like links.
Okay.
So this is the way we can understand those APIs, and we will consume by using HTTP client. So these are the so every like an authentication. So we should go through first and how we are going to authenticate these APIs. So what the API mechanism they're going to follow. So because we have to authenticate ourselves at Boomi site. So let's go to create one more folder here. We have HTTP folder, activity folder. Let's create HTTP activity. So suppose like we are going to consume our HTTP, then we have HTTP client, we should use. So we have like 2 actions, like one is get, one is send. So get is nothing but right, REST has like many verbs. So verbs is nothing but like methods. So they have like post method, they have get method, right? So post is like creating some resources on the REST service side. So get is nothing but if you want to consume some service from the REST services, we are going to use like get method. So this is also like purely like we are going to use so every like endpoint has like different sources. Suppose we see here. So get survey folders. So this is the get method. This is like an endpoint we are also using for like the get method. Okay. And this is the complete. Okay. So this is like an endpoint here. This is the base path generally. So this is the domain, and this is like schema, and this is the method or like a verb we are going to use, and this is the base path, and this is the like a resource path. So we can like divide this endpoint URL like three types. One is like schema, HTTP or HTTPS, and domain name, and this is the base path v3 version number, and this is the resource path, and this is the verb or like method we can call it. So this authentication is like authorization bearer token, access token. They're going to use it. So how we are going to get like an access token? So you should have to get this authentication mechanism. So they're going to use like OAuth 2.0 flow. Okay. So they are using like right OAuth framework.
No.
No, right. So OAuth framework is OAuth is like framework. It is like a security framework. So they have like different authentication mechanisms they're going to use. When you're going to suppose you are going to develop a service like this SurveyMonkey API. So SurveyMonkey APIs, when we are going to develop any APIs, when you are going to publish these APIs to third-party systems. So we are going to like responsible for secure our APIs, right? So we are going to follow like many mechanisms. One of the framework is like OAuth 2.0 flow. So OAuth 2.0 mechanism is it is going to like many ways we are going to secure our APIs. So this OAuth 2.0 has many grant types. Okay, grant type is nothing but like, so what are the like mechanisms we are going to follow? So one is like password grant type they're going to use. Client password sorry. Yeah, client credential grant type. One is like client credential grant type. So this client credential grant type is nothing but, so actually like let me open on for easy understanding grant types. So this is separate concept actually. So actually like an OAuth 2.0 framework, how they're going to authorize, how we are going to authorize their services. So if any, they're going to implement like OAuth 2 services implemented for the secure API. So we are going to use this mechanism. So we have a client. Client is nothing but we are like who are going to access their services. Suppose like we are the clients. Delboom is a client. We are going to access SurveyMonkey API. Okay. So the SurveyMonkey API is like a server, or like resource server, or like a resource owner. Okay. So here see. So client is nothing but called the API, the app who is like calling. So the app is running on a mobile device or traditional web app. So the app make request to the resource server to protect as like an assets on behalf of the resource owner. Means we are like the client may be end user, or it might be an app who are going to access the end user services. Okay. The resource owner is nothing but end user. So this is generally like a person or like an activity who is capable of granting access to protected resource. So for example, if an app needs to use data from on our like social media site, then you are the resource owner. Okay.
Yeah.
So resource server is nothing but it is like in Facebook or like in Google or SurveyMonkey. It is like a resource server who hold the services. So there is nothing but resource server. So authorization server is nothing but here who are going to protect this resource. Okay, who are going to protect this resource? That is nothing but authorization resource server. In our case, authorization resource server is like OAuth 2.1.
Okay.
Okay. Remember, we have like a different authorization grant types. One is like a client credentials grant type. Okay, let me open client credentials grant type. See, this is like a client credentials grant type architecture. Okay, so client credential grant type is nothing but SurveyMonkey is protected by OAuth 2.1. Okay, they are going to use. We should know. So which grant type they are going to use. Okay, suppose you should go here. So this is the OAuth 2.2 framework they are going to use, and you can go through this site and let undeclared and always studies OAuth reader register. So I think this they are going to use like a client credentials grant type. Okay. Why? Because they're going to use client ID, response type, state. So let's have like a letter. So let's continue this one. So suppose they're going to use like a client credentials grant type. Okay. So whenever like particular service going to use like client credentials grant type and using like OAuth tool. So then what we have to do is first we have to send access token, client ID and a client secret. Why? Because this resource server is nothing but a backend service. So suppose like a SurveyMonkey API, like in any other services. Okay. So in between we have like an authorization server. This is like an APG edge. Forget about. So remember this is like authorization server. So authorization server is nothing but who are like this authorization server like protecting these backend resources or backend service. Okay. So this authentication like an authorization server will provide OAuth 2.0 framework for backend service. Like an APG is like API mechanism, API management mechanism. They are going to use different authentications like an OAuth 2.0 basic authentication or like many authentications like an APG will provide. Okay, suppose you are developing one service like an API like a SurveyMonkey APIs. If you want to protect your resources, you have to use many authentication types. So I'm getting background noise.
No.
Yeah, that's okay. So this APG Edge, one of the APG Edge is like authentication provider, authorization provider. Okay. So we are going to use like an authorization server. We are going to use like a client credential grant type in between like an APG Edge. Okay. So when they are going to use like use client credential grant type, So we are going to call first access token on URL for getting like an access token. Okay, we should pass like a client ID and client secret, then we will get like a valid credentials back. Okay, suppose like in SurveyMonkey, they already had, we should like register our app first. Okay, let me sign in here.
This is also can be a free account or
Yeah, so they are also providing some free account, no problem, you can use it. So in developer SurveyMonkey.api, you should like register first. Okay, and you should go _ my apps. So here you should like register your application first. Okay, so already created, like let's create a new app and Boomi app. Why? Because we are accessing from Boomi applications. Private app and public is public app. See, they are going to give like client ID and client secret automatically. Okay. Hello. Okay.
yes.
So you are using like see here we have using like activity users we don't have, and this is the client ID and the client secret we are going to use. Okay. This is inbuilt mechanism, so this is already implemented by using like auth2.org. So we no need to like just we have to pass like client ID and client secret. Okay, so they're going to give like back valid access token again. So when we are going to send this access token, they will get like valid access token password. Choosing this access token, so whenever we are going to send original request, make a request to backend resources. Suppose we are going to use like one of the resource from the SurveyMonkey. Then what they're going to do is we have to send access token along with this. When we are going to invoke the external resource, then what will happen when we are going to send access token, this APG edge will authenticate. So whether it is like valid authentication token or not. So when the authentication is happen, then it is going to allow to it backend service. So once it is authenticated by the authorization server, then resource server will give the resource back to APG edge, then APG authorization server, then authorization server will give the response back to client applications.
Okay.
So this is like a client credentials grant type. Okay. So we have like password grant type also we had. So this is like so similarly like a client credential grant type, only we have to pass client ID and client secret, and the authorization server will authenticate the client ID, like will give like authenticate the client ID client secret, and will give access token. Using that access token, we are going to make a request to backend service. Then it's going to authenticate again as the access token is valid or not. If it is valid, it's going to allow to hit to the backend service, and they will get the response back. Okay.
Same like
that is like client credential grant type. So password grant type is only thing is, so we have authorization server here. Along with the authorization server, we have authentication service also will be there.
Okay.
So this is like a basic authentication and backend service. Okay. So only thing when using a grant type using OAuth2, where we use a password grant type, then what will happen when you are going to hit authorization server? First, we need to pass client ID and client secret along with username and password.
Okay.
Okay. Then client ID and client secret will be authenticated by authorization server OAuth2 framework, and we are passing username and password also, right? Once it is authenticated, client ID and client secret, but username and password will be sent back to basic authentication. Yes. So this username and password is nothing but backend resource username and password. This based on backend resource name, like it will be authenticated if you are providing valid username and password. Again, it will give back to success response to APG Edge. Then APG Edge will give new access token to client application. Then client app again will call actual URL, means actual resource backend services. So it's going to authenticate the access token and directly we can call backend service. Backend service will give the response. Again, we are going to get back. So this is what will happen. Okay, suppose if we see here live example, we are like sign up with, suppose we are using like Make My Trip or any application like Make My Trip or like in any other new application. If you are going to sign up, okay, then generally they're going to use Gmail, right? Suppose we don't have, if we don't have any account in Make My Trip, then what will happen? Generally, we are going to sign with Gmail.
Yeah.
Right. So what will happen, right? So the Gmail is like authorization server here. Okay. Gmail is an authorization server. So once we are using like a username and password, they're going to authenticate our username and password if it is a valid user, and we already register in Gmail, right? Because we have Gmail. Then they're going to authenticate, and it's authenticated. Then what they're going to redirect to Make My Trip by using this OAuth2 framework. Okay, this Gmail is like an authorization user, like Make My Trip will allow. So Make My Trip using like Gmail is the authorization server, like here it is APG Edge, right? Same like. Suppose we see here, I will show that one example here. See here, login with Google. Okay. See this, see here, OAuth2.
Oh.
So copy paste this one. See here, this is like OAuth2 framework. So it is redirected into authorization server. This is the authorization server. Okay, and so we are going to try to log in into Make My Trip. This Make My Trip. So this is the redirect URL of like Make My Trip. See here, www.makemytrip. That's one. See here, ID and token, scope, email. So granted scope equal to client ID. So this is the client ID.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is the way it is going to see general OAuth flow. It is flow name is authorization flow they're going to use. So this is internally authorization mechanism they're going to use. So that is the way we are going to sign up with like a Make My Trip, and then they're going to allow us. So internally happen like this. So they're going to sign up. So this is like an internal authentication mechanism. So the powerful authentication mechanism is, so client, whenever we are going to use like a client credential grant type means, so whenever there is no user interactions will be there. It's only application to application. So we are going to use like client credential grant type.
Because there we don't have user authentication.
User authentication is not required. So whenever user is like involved in these grant types, then we can use like a password grant type. Okay, we have one more thing is like an authorization code grant type. This is like the most powerful, so we are going to use. So this is like see here, this is like a big architecture again. So a lot of authentications will be there. everything like client application, user agent, and client applications. So generally, now we are going to use this one, right? Gmail and MakeMyTrip. That's the best example for like this one.
So
We
these
have
are like
used,
paid service only, right? So they will pay for.
yeah, this is like yeah, this is the paid services. Yes, exactly. This is the paid services. MakeMyTrip will use paid services from Gmail. This is like in paid services. So like many applications using these OAuth 2 by using like many grant types. We should go. So this is like a vast examples. So generally, we are going to use the HTTP REST client to consume external resources by using like different authentication mechanisms. Okay. Suppose let's as of now, let's take one simple example. So dummy REST API example. So we have dummy REST APIs as available. So go to this dummy REST API. You see, we have dummy REST APIs, and see, this is the endpoint URL we have, and type is like in a JSON is accepting. Okay, so these are like in different methods. Like if you get like an all employee details, then we can use like get all employees. Okay, so get a single employee data, we can use this is the resource path employee, and as I told you, right? So this is like method schema, and this is the domain name, and this is the resource path, and sorry, base path, and this is the resource path. So these are the resource paths. Means domain and base path is common for all resources. If you observe, like up to v1 is common, base path and resource like domain path is common. So only resource path will be different. Why? Because we have different services. Means we have different resources. Even if a SurveyMonkey, if you take a look, only resource path will be changed, and remaining base path, up to base path is common. Okay, so up to base path we can consider as it is a connection endpoint URL. Up to base path we can consider it is a endpoint URL. So remaining is resource path. What resource we are going to consume, you can use this as resource path. Okay, so in our case, I'm going to use like a connection. So here I'm going to use connection mechanism. So connection is nothing but so HTTP client connection. So which endpoint URL we are going to invoke. So this is what I'm going to do. API/API. So when you are going to use different resources, you can use the same connection again and again. No need to change. Okay. So authentication type. So we have like you can see we have OAuth 2.0 and we have like OAuth, it is a version 1 and this is the version 2. Now we are going to like in everywhere version 2. And we have like in basic authentication, if you have username and password. If we don't have any username and password, we can use like none. Okay.
Okay.
Now we have like an operation. So operation is nothing but what action we are going to use, what services we are going to invoke. So this is the operation now.
So then you updated everything?
Sorry?
Yeah. You're done there? The previous one.
Previous one, what?
The connection.
Yeah, here it is, right? So you already did, right? HTTP client connection here.
Can you go and check?
This is the endpoint URL, right?
Oh, so now right now you put none now. Okay.
Yeah, v1 and none. So here HTTP client. So this is like now dummy REST API. We don't require any. They're not going to protect their resource. Okay. So here we are going to use HTTP client connector operation, and here so what request we are going to send it. Okay. So how we are going to define like whether we are going to send a request or not. So this is like purely based on like an endpoint REST API only. So this is like a get method. So this is the resource path, means we are going to get all employee details. Means, so here we are not going to send any input. We are not going to set any input. So what basically we are not going to send any input, we can make it is none. Hello. Yeah, so when we are going to get the response profile type, so what response we are going to will get it back. So that is like, you have to understand again that this one. So you can go to details here. What is the endpoint URL which is going to return? So here if you see, so this is the response we are going to get it back, and this is the get method, right? So this response we are going to send it back, means you have to use this response and open. So this is the response we are going to get it back from the survey monkey. So this is the data. So this we are going to get number of employee details. So this is the array type. So this is, we will get like a number of employee details. This is the sample file they are going to give. This is the way we are going, they will get the response. We will get the response. They are going to provide the responses. So just employee response dot JSON. Already there. Just okay. You can use the sample JSON response here. So I will get the JSON as a response, and you can use, first create a profile, right? Then create a profile. Employee JSON profile and import sample response profile from our local computer. Okay, save and close. HTTP method. So what HTTP method? This operations supports only like an HTTP get method, right? So you can use like a get method. So return HTTP errors. Just if you have any errors while executing this, then we will get the HTTP errors. Okay.
Okay.
So request header. So we are not going to send any request header, and you can make it. And a resource path. So what resource path we are going to send it back? So what resource path we are going to use? Like this is the resource path we are going to use, employees. So you can use employees. No need to use a slash. Automatically it's going to depend slash from client connection to this resource path. Okay. So we are not going to use any header mappings, any response headers. We are not going to use. Save and close. You can use stop as of now. See here we will get response. We'll get like all employee details from them. So this is the way we are going to invoke like any RESTful web services. Suppose like whenever we are going to change, so the connection is a comma. So when you are going to invoke next services, you can create a next operation. Okay, next HTTP client we are going to use, and we are going to use next operation. Suppose in the same operation, I'm going to change. Now, what we are going to use, like, the next one is, let's go back. So I'm going to like an employee ID, particular employee ID I'm going to use. So this is the resource for I'm going to use employee/ID. So employee/ID. So here what I'm going to use employee, and next time I'm going to create is like ID. So this is a replacement variable, right? So we are going to replace this ID with like dynamic value. So that is like a replacement variable. So here save and close, and this replacement variable we have to pass it from as a set property shape. Set property shape I'm going to use like in a dynamic document property. Here I can give, we can give any name. Okay, so ID. So the same name you should give. ID. You should pass ID is like next I'm going to get like 24. Employee number is like 5. Let's say. ID. So this ID is already setting in set property shape. The same document. Now see here, we will get the like a particular employee data. See the particular ID is like 5. The only particular employee we get.
Okay.
Got it, right? If we see this HTTP client, you can go to logs here. Here we should go to logs. See how it is like in a form. So that is the client connections. This is the endpoint, like an URL connection to the one, and this is the resource part. It is like a forming background.
Okay.
Suppose like you can like using like Facebook, even Salesforce also we can hit it. So every application has like REST APIs. So whenever they're going to develop and they're going to provide any services to third-party applications, and they must and should follow some mechanisms. So whether it is like in SOAP REST API specifications, they're going to follow, implement their applications, or like they're going to follow SOAP web service specifications. So then only we are going to consume their services. Otherwise, we cannot. Even for Salesforce also we have connector, right? The Salesforce also using like background. They're going to use like SOAP or like REST. So externally, if you want to invoke manually, then you can follow their APIs. And they have like in Salesforce APIs, REST APIs will be there. You should follow, and you should invoke instead of Salesforce connector, you can use HTTP connector. Salesforce REST APIs. See developer.salesforce.com. So they're also calling like OAuth2.1. I have some examples here. So we have like many metadata objects are available. So can consume these. Working with records, we go create a record. So these are the like we have like a list of like APIs are available. We can use these APIs. You can consume. So every application, if you say like third-party system, like we don't have like an ICICI Bank, right? So you can go to developer.icicibank.com. So developer.icicibank.com. So if you want to consume their APIs, you can use HTTP. Why? Because we don't have particular adapter is not there, like connector is not there. So you can sign up and you have to use premium service from ICICI Bank. They're not going to provide for free. How would that like Google Pay or like Phone Pay using? So they're going to consume these APIs, developer.icicibank.com. They're consume their APIs, whatever they require. So they're going to provide like a sandbox or like UAT and production like this. So these are the APIs they're going to provide to us. Like in business banking, loan and cards, and UPI. See, this is like a payment UPIs. Okay, these are like in payment UPIs. They're going to.
Okay, so Gopi, some time back we checked. We see that listening, right? REST, we call REST services, right?
Yeah, listening. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So
What is the difference between these two? This HTTP and the other one?
So web services listener is nothing but we are going to expose our services to third-party systems, like developer, like an ICICI Bank exposing, like an expose their services to Boomi, right? So we are consuming these services, ICICI Bank services, like SurveyMonkey or anything. But here, Boomi is creating their own services. And we are going to provide our services to third-party systems. How we are going to consume third-party services like ICICI? The same way third-party users will consume our services. Then we are going to use like a web services server listener. This one we are going to use listener. So not this one. So web services listener. Web service server. Suppose go here. Connector. So this is web service server. So this web service server is nothing but this entire service we are going to expose through Boomi. Then outside user going to consume our services. That is like in web services server. Earlier we see, right? So we are hitting from Postman, and we are going to invoke this Boomi services. Got it? Hello? We are in mute.
Yeah, I'm not sorry. Now we are exposing third-party services, right?
Yeah, no. We are exposing our services to third-party systems. When we are going to expose, we are using like start shape should be web service server listener. Okay. So when we are going to consume third-party systems, we are going to use like an HTTP client or SOAP web services.
Okay.
Only the difference is.
Okay.
You are going to create your own services, and this service you are going to provide to third-party system. And that in this case we are using web service server listener. So it is already developed by someone. Then you are going to consume their services then you are going to HTTP client like this. Suppose like an ICICI Bank, if you want to use like a fast tag or like something, these services there you want to use. Okay, like in a refund and like new UPI you want to go. So provide see here, they're going to provide. So these are the like APIs they're going to provide. You can consume these services from them. So and we have they're going to have business banking. They have payments. So IMPS, like direct as composite pay. So these are the APIs they're already developed. You can consume these APIs and you can use in your business, in your application. Like how that Google Pay or like Phone Pay or any pays like third-party systems consume. We are like in checking balance, funds transfers. So this is the way we are going to use using Google Pay.
Okay.
And suppose like these are the like REST APIs. So nowadays everyone going to develop their services using like this only, means REST APIs. So earlier legacy systems already developed decade back they developed like by using like SOAP web services. So the SOAP web services is nothing but this is when you are going to invoke any services, what you need to do is when REST APIs we should have like an endpoint URL and what resource we are going to call. I suppose we are going to call IMPS. Yes, this is the resource path we are going to use. But when you are going to call SOAP web services, then what we need to require is WSDL file is required. Okay, WSDL file is required. So this WSDL is nothing but digital file. We can call it is this digital file is nothing but web service description language file. Okay, so this description language file is nothing but the entire service is wrapping into one bundle. Okay, so what are the services is available on particular the service is going to provide all services include into one single file. So that single file is nothing but digital file. Suppose we have services from the ICICI Bank. So they have many services. So each service is individual. Okay, if you want to call IMPS, yes, you can call this resource path only like this. We have like an employee services. So if you want to call employee services, you can include whatever you want. But in our case, if it is, let's take the example, if it is a SOAP web services, what will we know, right? We need entire description file. So what they're offering, what are the services they're offering? All offerings they're going to include into one single file that is called digital file.
So then it is a old version.
Yeah, this is the this is like a legacy. Okay, SOAP web services. Okay, they're going to include like an endpoint URL and they're going to include what are the services available and within the services what are the functions they're going to use, what are the requests there, what are the request parameters, what are the response parameters, everything they're going to include in the single digital file. So when you're going to consume, you should have digital file in your hand, otherwise you cannot invoke those SOAP web services. That is disadvantage. So but here we no need to use any file here, but here we can use that entire service in our hand. Then we can use this digital file and you can choose which version, which operation you are going to invoke. Suppose if you see here sample example, calculator visual. So this is like a SOAP web service. Okay, so irrespective of technology, what the technology implemented, so we're not going to take care, but only thing is whether it is web services or not. So this is like SOAP web services. They're going to offer like additions and divide and multiple subtract. Suppose if it is a REST API, if you want to use addition, then you can only call this method by using endpoint URL and resource path. But here, if you want to use add method in your application, if you want to invoke this service, add service, then you should have all these service in your hand. Suppose this is the service description. So the service description is nothing but digital file. So this digital file has all operations. See, add response, subtract input, subtract response, like a divide response, and every operations and every method, every parameters, request parameter, response parameters, everything. See here, it is included in your digital file. Included in your digital file. That is the disadvantage. You should have handle all the operations in your hand, then only you are going to use
All
this
this.
service.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So even if you want to call this service, you should have all these services. So this is like in a calculator digital files.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the digital file. Always the endpoint URL ended with like no placeholder WSDL file. You can use this one. Okay. Why it is saying something? So if you want to like invoke this digital, you should test it from before. When we are going to invoke any digital file, you should test it from SOAP-AI tools or like Postman tools. Okay. Suppose if we are going to use like a SOAP-AI tool for testing for most of the like SOAP web services. So first we should invoke from SOAP-AI whether it is working or not. If it is working, then we can invoke from Boomi. So this is like calculator digital we have. So if you see, if you want to invoke add digital, you should have all this file, but you are going to only use this file. Suppose like 25. So it is like in 50. Okay. So the same service, if you want to invoke from this Boomi, then you can use Boomi tool, and you can use like a SOAP web service client. Web services SOAP client, and you can execute method you should use, and connection. So you have a connection, and connection we have visual URL and endpoint URL also both same, but only thing you should remove this placeholder. This is the endpoint URL, and this is the visual URL. We don't have like any security type, so I think. And you have to operation. So which operation you are going to use? Then I'm going to use like an add operation. So you can import. You can choose Atom. Connection is just we created. Expose response envelope as well. Request and response envelope. See, we have like an object type add and divide and multiple and subtract. So once you use this object type, so see the way you are going to invoke SOAP web services. Now we should pass SOAP web services like in a request. So how you are going to pass your request means this is the way you are going to pass. Right. So you can use something like a message shape. So as of now, and start shape should be no data shape. see we'll get the response like this. Okay, and one more thing. So this is the way you're going to pass message shape, and also other like we can use this operation, right? We have already request profile here. We have already request profile is like generated by default, but in REST API we don't have, right? But in here the request profile is generated and response profile also generated. Using this request profile, you can use map shape here. You can use map shape. You can take that request and income request. You should pass it. Okay, so there's the two ways. Directly can use like a message shape. You can pass these 20 into bay from variable section. Directly can. So this is simple only. So this is not a complex one to invoke. Always we can easily invoke any services by using these two.
Okay.
So when we don't have like enough connectors, like this connector is not available, or like if it is a legacy system, we can use the SOAP app services or like an HTTP client. Other than we can regularly we are going to use these connectors.
Okay.
Yeah, that is like SOAP app services and REST client. So I think so we already yeah, I think we've seen like an API management, how we are going to expose our services and how we are going to invoke, and anything pending. All process route we've done and the program command shape. I think that's it. Like we already covered all topics. Anything you have any doubts?
Actually, I have to revisit the EDA portion and few courses maybe. Yeah, maybe you mean like everything's done, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I will recall if I have any question. I will call you.
Yeah. So
yeah,
you can call me. Then I will set up your number.
Actually, no. Still, I didn't get the laptop. So once I get the laptop, I come to know what are the things is required from my real-time scenario. So maybe because anyway I'm planning to do that one. Once I see the real time, I know what is I need to start. Anyway, mostly I am aware, but if I have any question, maybe I'll call you.
Yeah, sure. Then.
Thank you so much for all this thing. Very nice to the last 1 month. You gave all the inputs. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.